around the nation, TYT Nation. Welcome to the show, around the nation right here. Oh, what's going on? I have the automatic lighting set on my camera, so it's apparently not turning out so well. But ignore that. Welcome to the show. Around the nation right here, TYT Nation. Jeff Waldorf here with you on today's show. Interesting way to start out. There we go. As it adjusts, my shirt will be less see-through. Boy, that sounds terrible. Okay, anyway. Always fun when you're working with a crew of one. That would be me. Okay. So, I thought about at some point, like, being able to ditch the green screen, right? But I don't know what I would put behind me other than just like a wall. So, it'd be kind of boring. Um, and so, we'll figure things out in the future. Hey, at some point, I would like to get an actual studio, which would be awesome. I mean, I see what Mike Figueredo from the Humanist Report has done. His studio looks amazing. Kyle Kalinske, Secular Talk, his studio looks amazing. The Young Turks, their studio looks amazing. And me, I'm Ghost in here. So I don't. So you work with what you got, man. And what I got, it ain't much. But anyway, thank you guys for tuning in, such as it is. Maybe I'll start from the bottom, right? So that in mind, I want to thank some people who are helping me through our Patreon, patreon.com/TYTNation. I want to give a big shout out to Roberta Jansen, Ron Richardson, Sam Schaefer, Sean Manson, Stephen Deck, Swerner, and Tom Dwyer. So thank you to all those people who help us out here at patreon.com/TYTNation. That's how you can help out the show and eventually make it so that I can not be a ghost. I need your money to make me a lot. No, I'm kidding. I'm messing with you guys. But seriously, please consider becoming a patron of the show. All right. Anyway, weird show. Okay. So now, I do have some news before we get into the stories because we got some great stories today. We got Trump's corruption. Obviously, we got self-impeachment. This is great. We also have Thunberg, Greta Thunberg being attacked again on Twitter. And my thoughts on the sentencing of Amber Guyger. So, okay, well, that's interesting. So, but before we get into the details, we do have a breaking story here. Bernie Sanders, just an update on Senator Sanders. He had the stents put in, so he had a blocked artery, and he's currently recovering. The update is that he will be in the debate. So, according to Jane Sanders, Bernie will be able to return home by the end of the week. So, we're really close in the week. So, probably tomorrow, maybe even later today. And then he'll be basically back on the campaign trail. So that's kind of awesome. Now, what's interesting about this, and I don't have the video for it, and I wish I did, but I just found out before the show that you had Claire McCaskill out there not only saying nice things about Bernie Sanders, about, we hope he recovers, everything like that, but also that his fundraising numbers were, quote, amazing. She said that on MSNBC. Holy crap. So, as Ed Schultz taught us, you do not say nice things on MSNBC and last. So, I don't know. Claire McCaskill's time on MSNBC must be coming to an end already. But anyway, okay. So, he's okay. All right. Getting into the stories. So, let's go into... Let's just dive right in.
Well, I would think that if they were honest about it, they'd start a major investigation into the Bidens. It's a very simple answer. They should investigate the Bidens, because how does a company that's newly formed, and all these companies, if you look at, and by the way, likewise, China should start an investigation into the Bidens, because what happened in China is just about as bad as what happened with Ukraine.
So that was President Trump asking another foreign country to dig up dirt on his political opponent, Joe Biden. Out in the open, in front of cameras, telling reporters, China should do an investigation on my political opponent. Oops. Again, he also reiterated his call on Ukraine. And, by the way, several times he asked the Chinese to investigate Biden. There's millions and millions of dollars related to the Bidens in China. So, hey, China, investigation. Now, of course, totally wrong thing to do. You should not be doing that. But he says, hey, man, I'm being investigated for doing essentially the same thing, asking the Ukrainians to investigate Biden. So as long as I'm doing crime, I might as well go for broke and do even more crime. Right, of course. So now, what makes China problematic is right now we're in a trade war with China. Thanks to Donald Trump, thanks to his tariffs. Now, those tariffs are actually doing quite a bit of damage, not only to the U.S. economy, as we know, but it's also doing a lot of damage to the Chinese economy. And so now here's Trump saying, do an investigation on Biden. And just before, by the way, he's supposed to go meet with the Chinese President Xi, to go and discuss trade. And he just says this. It's so obvious. He is doing more and more crime. And he's unabashed about it. So now following this, of course, you had a firestorm of tweets from different legal experts. I'm going to read some of these. Brian Klaas said this is impeachable, and it's no longer just a call or a whistleblower. He's saying it from the White House lawn. He must be removed from office. Trump is tying U.S. foreign policy to his political interests. Again, trade is part of foreign policy as well. Well, it's different, but it's dealing with different countries, so it's foreign policy. So, no, you shouldn't do that. You shouldn't tie either trade policy or foreign policy into your political ambitions. That is clearly wrong, illegal. I mean, penalty flag on the play here. We're going to have to go back and, impeach the MFer, essentially, is what a lot of these experts are saying. So more. Here's a former federal prosecutor named Joyce Lean said this. Trump just committed a felony violation of law by soliciting something of value in connection with a U.S. election from a foreign government on national TV, and she cites 52 U.S. Code 30121. She then adds, violating the law isn't necessary for impeachment, as impeachment is a political process. Nobody goes to jail after they're impeached, right? It's simply removal from office. It's, again, it's as Lindsey Graham pointed out, it's for removing the stain. It's for cleansing the office. What in this case would be removing the stain, this giant orange stain from the Oval Office. And she says it isn't necessary for there to be a violation of the law, but it certainly warrants it. Here you have former director of the U.S. Government Office of Government Ethics, Walter Schaub, saying this, quote, the man just renewed his solicitation of a foreign attack on our election and added a second country. This anti-American behavior is not something we can tolerate from a sitting president. His job, his sworn duty, is to defend America, not betray it. Yeah, but again, the number one calculation that goes through Donald Trump's head is, yeah, but how am I going to benefit from this? What do I get out of it? Well, in this case, if China does an investigation into Joe Biden and Ukraine does an investigation into Joe Biden, he's hoping that he will get some sort of dirt like he did with Hillary Clinton that will allow him to win the election, because right now polls show him massively behind. Massively. So now let me go to Attorney Doug McConis, says this: I'll say this much for Trump, unlike Nixon, who committed his crimes behind the scenes, Trump commits his in public while the news cameras are rolling. It certainly does make impeachment pretty easy, doesn't it? I mean, there it is, right there in front of our faces. Really easy, and yet, of course, knowing Nancy Pelosi and the Democrats, they'll probably somehow find a way to screw it up. More. Conservative Max Boot. Now, I like to call him Max Bootlicker. But in this case, not so much. He said Democrats should add this to the articles of impeachment. Just because Trump is saying it on camera doesn't change the fact that it's impeachable conduct to demand that a foreign country interfere in our election. Here we go again. Again, this is already the same thing that he is being investigated for. He just did it again. He said, foreign countries, hey, please interfere with our elections. Dig up dirt on my political opponents, please. It's right there. It's right there. Can't get any more obvious. And I know, of course, MAGA guys, look, you can't watch that video and say, oh, yeah, no, what he did, totally fine, 100% above board. Even if you agree that what Hunter Biden and Joe Biden have been doing is corruption, and I believe, I think it is systemic corruption, but it's not, and the nature of systemic corruption is that it's not illegal. Even that, right? Even if you agree that you should have investigations into the Bidens, which we already have, by the way. Hunter Biden was cleared of any sort of wrongdoing. So even if there are investigations, right? Even if you believe it, calling for that investigation as the president of the United States and openly asking for foreign leaders that, by the way, you hold power in the negotiations. Earlier in that clip, one of the parts that wasn't actually in that video that we showed you is Trump boasting that he's got a lot of power when it comes to China. And then immediately says Ukraine should look into Biden. And then, by the way, China should look into Biden as well. I think it's really, really obvious. But MAGA guys, I know. They're going to say fake news. It's a witch hunt. No, this is him. This is his Fifth Avenue moment. He shot someone on Fifth Avenue. Not literally, but politically. He's trying to shoot Joe Biden on Fifth Avenue. So, and he feels either he's untouchable or he's that stupid. He's certainly not stable, not a genius. He's out there committing crimes in broad daylight. Either he's lost his mind, or like I said, he's either incredibly stupid or thinks I can get away with it because I've gotten away with pretty much everything. I've so far gotten away with, everything involved in the Mueller report. Now I'm getting away with everything in Ukraine. Or I think I'm going to get away with everything in Ukraine. Now I'm calling, I called for Russia to find Hillary's emails. Now I'm calling for Ukraine and China to dig up dirt on on Biden and my political opponents. No. This is it. This is it. We got to remove this guy. We can't have this guy anymore. Now, whether it be 25th Amendment or impeachment or whatever, I don't care how he gets removed. He's got to go. Because he's not only corrupt, deeply stupid, but he's also incredibly un-American. He's got to go. Okay. Speaking of impeachment, I've got some numbers for you guys. Now, with the president facing an impeachment inquiry over his call with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, polls are now showing impeachment is becoming a bit more popular. So now this came out last week, or I should say it was conducted last week, and this is before the breaking news that we had today, where Donald Trump, in the open, just asked Ukraine and China to dig up dirt on his political opponents. So now, let me give you the numbers, because I'm sure these numbers are probably going to get even bigger. Americans right now, by a 45 to 38% plurality, now support impeachment. Here we go. Here we go. So again, majority of people who want the House to begin impeachment proceedings immediately. So now, right now, we have an impeachment inquiry, which means, of course, they're gathering information, they're gathering they're making their case, they're doing their investigations, and we don't know what the scope of that's going to be. There's a lot of discussion about the Democrats, unfortunately, narrowing that scope to Ukraine, which I think would be a terrible idea. Make it as broad as possible when it comes to him actually doing crime, right? And look, you could even involve tweets about the Civil War, him retweeting this gross thing from Pastor Robert Jeffress that we talked about a few days ago. Yeah, I mean, you could involve all of that stuff in impeachment since it doesn't have to be on criminal charges. So now, here's the thing: that a lot of people, they saw the memo, right? The American people, they saw the memo. They understand that you cannot ask a foreign government to look into your political opponents to give you a political advantage. You can't do that. Illegal. And one of the things that Americans hate when it comes to politicians is when they try to use their power and their position in order to benefit themselves politically. And that's what this is. It is a campaign contribution, or it would be considered a campaign contribution to ask a foreign leader to do an investigation on someone that you're currently running against. So now it gets worse for Donald Trump by a similar margin, 44 to 35. Those surveyed say the Senate, which would be charged with holding a trial of the president, should convict Trump and remove him from office. So 44% of Americans say, based on what we have now, yes, get rid of him. Convict him, remove him from office, let's get somebody else in there. Again, this is before impeachment has even begun, before the Democrats have even had a chance to make their case. 44%. This is big, because this is not something, impeachment is not something that people take very lightly. Even in the case of Donald Trump. In fact, according to a USA Today Suffolk University poll taken all the way back in June, before the impeachment inquiry was launched, they found opponents outweighing supporters by nearly 2 to 1. You had 61% of Americans polled that said, no, I don't believe that we should impeach the president. 32% saying yes. Now, this is a big, big change. Now, Cliff Young, president of Ipsos Public Affairs, said this: an overwhelming majority of Americans say that the president is subject to laws like any citizens, as they should be. Public opinion, however, might be tolerant, but there are limits. So we'll see what happens if and when the Democrats actually do bring formal impeachment charges or articles. So now, there's more information here, and I think this should be obvious, but obviously more Democrats are in favor of impeachment than Republicans. Democrats, 74% say they support impeachment. Just 17% of Republicans agree. I'm actually surprised that it's that high. 17% of Republicans are like, yeah, impeach the guy. Just get it over with already. Independents, however, and this is really interesting as well, they're split down the middle, 37-37. Even among Republicans, though, 30% of them say that the president asking Ukraine to look into the behavior of Joe Biden and his son Hunter would be an abuse of power. 30% of Republicans. Now imagine if it were Obama. Obama asking to look into, I don't know, Ukraine. Or I'm sorry, not Ukraine, but Mitt Romney, right? And maybe his relationship to China or something like that. Whatever, right? Look into Mitt Romney, he says. Imagine how many Republicans would then be like, impeach! Abuse of power! Get him! String him up! I can imagine it would be a lot. Now, what's interesting about this as well is that 80% of Republicans, a higher number than among Democrats or independents, and that's interesting, say that the president is subject to all laws. 80% of Republicans, yeah, well, of course the president's subject to all the laws, but the president, current president, is a Republican, is breaking a lot of laws. So look, this would make Republicans incredibly hypocritical on this issue. But there is one slight caveat. They say nearly 2/3 of Republicans are not in favor of impeachment right now because they say, well, we just don't have enough reliable information. Oh, okay. Reliable information, right? So this goes to distrust of the media, right? So Republicans distrust any media except for Fox News. Well, what's Fox News saying? Fox News says witch hunt. Fox News says not enough for impeachment, except for Andrew Napolitano. And there are very few voices on Fox News right now that are saying, yes, we probably should do impeachment. These are crimes. And I got to give Napolitano a lot of credit for actually being honest on this issue. But most of Fox News, you look at Sean Hannity, you look at some of the rest of these, pundits that you have in these in the opinion section, and they're saying witch hunt, Fox and Friends, complete and utter BS. It's political. Well, yeah, impeachment is a political process. Still, it's a process of, like I said, or like our good friend Lindsey Graham said, it's a way to cleanse the office. And I think it needs a cleansing. But now, as far as information goes, how do you get actual information? Well, you get it through investigations, which the Democrats have already launched. You also get it through subpoenas. Now, the Trump administration right now is doing everything that they can to block nearly all subpoenas from the Democrats. And even though this is a formal inquiry, so the Democrats, they have a master sergeant in arms. They have a literal jail in Congress, in the building. If Bill Barr or if anybody else is involved doesn't produce the documents that they ask for through subpoenas, lock them up. Because look, you have to cooperate with these subpoenas. So now, I think personally we do have enough already to impeach President Trump, based on his actions in Ukraine alone. Not to mention the Mueller report with the obstruction of justice. Not to mention all the crazy tweets he puts out, where he attacks other people, emboldens white supremacists, on and on and on and on and on, right? But at least when it comes to crimes, he violated campaign finance law to help himself politically. And it's obvious that he's going to do it again. Now, the other side of it, also interesting, is that Joe Biden might also be in trouble. By a 2-1 margin, 42-21, those polls say that there are valid reasons to look at the behavior of Joe and Hunter Biden in Ukraine. Okay. Look, here's the thing. I'm actually okay with looking into that. Even though there's already been an investigation, I would love to look at the systemic corruption. Because this is what this is, right? Hunter Biden was paid $50,000 a month for working at a Ukrainian gas company. But Hunter Biden knows nothing about gas companies. Why was he there? Why was he there in the first place? And that's a legitimate question. The reason he was there is because he's a Biden, his last name. And of course, foreign leaders at the time, Joe Biden, his father, was vice president of the United States. I think it's pretty obvious why he was on the board. They would love to have the influence. And look, the foreign leaders would love to buy influence from anyone. And this is how you do it. That's why it's systemic corruption. And again, I want to stamp out systemic corruption. And so if you want to look into that and actually try to find ways to end that kind of corruption, 100% agree. That said, the laws such as they are, there was no wrongdoing by either Hunter Biden or Joe Biden, other than, of course, the systemic corruption. And again, until we take on that type of corruption, this kind of stuff that's going to continue to happen, influence peddling. The good news is that most of us agree that we should stop it. 6 in 10 Republicans and Democrats think that the children of senior officials should be prohibited from benefiting from family relationships. And again, 100% agree. And look, the Bidens, if we investigate the Bidens, right? If you agree that we should investigate the Bidens, then I think also the Trump children should be fair game because they themselves have also shown that they benefit from their fathers, from their family relationships. So, good news for Trump, though, and that's on the results of impeachment. So, there's a lot of people that believe that Trump will actually come out of this not better, although there are some that come out say that he's come out better, but most are saying he'll come out untouched. Now, first, 3% think that Trump will resign before the end of his first term. I don't think he will. So I agree with that. 15% expect him to be removed through impeachment, just 15%. One third of those surveyed, 33%, say he will remain, serve out his first term as president, and another 29% predict that he will not only do that, but also will win a second term. So Americans are looking at impeachment and say, look, yes, he should be impeached because no president is above the law. We are a nation of laws, but let's be honest, because we don't trust politicians to actually uphold the law, he will face no consequences. That right there shows a total lack of faith in the system. There's a lot of people, over half of Americans, know how impeachment works. They just don't believe the politicians will end up actually being able to do anything, that the partisanship will end up winning out. Now, right now, if there's a secret ballot, 35 Republicans in the Senate would vote for impeachment. But that's only if it were a secret tally, meaning that if it does come to the Senate, there's a good chance that Donald Trump would be allowed to skate, even if the senators themselves say, we know the guy is guilty, but we're not going to go up against our base because it's going to hurt our political chances. So it's just absolute cowardice. And so, again, a really interesting poll. I definitely want to see how this continues to go. If impeachment will continue to get more and more popular as time goes by, and as we continue to learn more and more. I mean, look, Nixon, when he was being impeached, or when he was going to be impeached, actually, the more information that came out, the closer and closer it got, the more worried he got, and he ended up, of course, resigning before conviction. So we'll see what happens. All right. I'm going to take a break, have some comments, and we'll investigate some more Donald Trump corruption right after this break. Welcome back to the show. Around the nation right here to you. Ooh, wow. Okay. I should probably fix that at some point. Uh, but okay. Let's do this one here. Okay. Welcome back to the show. Around the nation right here to ID Nation. Let me give you some, let me read some of your comments first. Got a couple of member comments here from one from Detective Faja. Says Trump is a vacuum. He sucks the oxygen out of the room. That is correct, unfortunately. Jeanette Villalona says Trump needs to be impeached. He speaks his corruption out loud, right? Unlike many other politicians, because we have a lot of corrupt politicians. He just does it the most brazenly. Sarchek says the Trump children are all benefiting from the corrupt father. While he's president, Ivanka is making money in China. Yes, some of her patents, ironically, were not touched by the sanction or by the tariffs. Interesting. So there's a little bit of disagreement here, and I'll read that and respond to it as I do. A dingo at my baby says, Jeff's starting to sound like MSNBC DNC. Trump bad, mean tweet, impeach. Senate won't narrative has been changing along with the main TYT channel after big Dem donor Katzenberg invested $20 million. I don't know anything about that. So, like, I'm not tied with any of that stuff. I don't know who invests into what. I know people that invest into my show, and that's it. I don't know any of that. But the whole narrative, I don't agree with. I think it's ridiculous. Oh no, they're changing everything because somebody invested money, and so now they're pro DNC. Except that they're incredibly pro Bernie Sanders. Weird how that works out. Now, Jank, frustratingly, is still like, I don't know, Elizabeth Warren. Elizabeth Warren has some huge red flags. Okay, she's not 100% for Medicare for all. I accept no middle ground. So I don't know if you guys watched that. What is it? It was a debate between Jank and Anna, where Anna basically says, I don't think Elizabeth Warren is really progressive on Medicare for all. And that was an interesting debate. And I took the side of Anna, who says, who basically points out that that's my issue, and Elizabeth Warren is terrible on that issue. She's also terrible on foreign policy. She has some good plans on other areas, but they're sort of half plans, right? They're sort of half measures. And for me, that's why I'm going for Bernie Sanders. And so that's why a lot of people are going for Bernie Sanders, because we will not accept middle ground. So, look, if you want to have criticisms of Jank when it comes to that, fair game. Absolute fair game. As far as what I talk about when it comes to the Donald Trump, right? Well, how else are you supposed to talk about it? Somebody who does criminal shit. It's criminal. He's a criminal. Look, he's doing things that's actually breaking constitutional law. What are you supposed to do? So I don't quite understand the criticism of criticizing a president who's a literal criminal. Look, I did the same thing. I criticized Obama day in, day out. Okay, back during the Obama administration, when it came to drone strikes, etc. And so, look, you criticize people when they do stuff that is wrong, and Donald Trump does a lot of wrong. So, again, I don't quite understand. Like, I get some, like, hey, maybe you guys focus a little too heavily on Trump, and that's a fair criticism as well. And I understand that, because at some point, like, hey, I get it. A lot of people don't like Trump. Don't want to hear about Trump constantly, and I get it. But I think it's important to point out what he's actually doing. So it is what it is, man. Okay. All right. Well, I got a super chat here. Zach Sherman says Warren will be a moderate Republican, just like Obama. No, I don't think that she'll go. She will definitely not go all the way. But I don't think she'll be quite like Obama. She has a terrible foreign policy, that's for sure. But I think if she ends up winning, there will be some change around the edges. A little bit, I think, a little bit more change than Obama, but just a little bit more. As she'll try to push it just a little more, but not in the change, not the kind of change that we need. So again, that's why I'm for Bernie Sanders. Okay. Anyway, so there's that. And for sure, Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren are not the same. They don't even have the same base. Warren's base is more white and affluent, whereas Sanders' base, of course, is teachers. And what was it? The three biggest teachers, Amazon workers, and Walmart workers. Those are the people who supported Bernie Sanders the most. So, and I'm with those guys. Okay. Anyway, let's go back and let's look into some corruption. I don't know if you know this, the president's kind of corrupt. Okay. Anyway. Oh no, wait. Um, that's the wrong one. There we go. So House Democrats have launched another investigation into allegations of corruption involving President Trump, his hotels, and foreign payments. So now this probe is part of the House Oversight Committee's broader investigation into whether Donald Trump broke the law by accepting money from U.S. or from foreign governments at his properties. This is according to a report in Politico. So now the committee had learned that a trade association and a foreign government booked a large number of rooms at some of Trump's properties. Now, what's interesting about that is that most of those rooms were empty. Very, very few of them were actually used. So now what does that look like? Well, to me, that looks like corruption. It means it looks like if you're trying to get in with the president of the United States and you know he's still profiting off his businesses, well, what do you do? Well, I think the answer is pretty obvious. So now, Representative Jerry Connolly is looking into this. He's an oversight committee member who chairs a subcommittee with jurisdiction over Trump's hotel in Washington. Says, "quote What we're looking at, or now we're looking at near raw bribery. That was a risk from day one. Foreign governments and others trying to seek favor because we know Trump pays attention to this." Going back to the memo, Zelensky, who's a Ukrainian president, mentioned, "Hey, by the way, I stayed at Trump Hotel one last time I was in the United States." They say it because you know he pays attention, because he likes money going into his pocket. He doesn't care where from. So now he added, Connolly did, "It's an obvious attempt to curry favor with." So this would again be a violation of the Emoluments Clause, which prohibits elected officials, including the president, from profiting from foreign governments or receiving money beyond their salary from the U.S. Government. Now, Trump says, "Look, I've divested from my businesses. My money's in a blind trust. I don't control any of it. In fact, my two sons, they run the business. I don't have anything to do with it." Now, if you believe that, then you probably also believe that Joe Biden never talked to Hunter Biden when it came to running that Ukrainian gas company or being on the board of that Ukrainian gas company. Of course, they talk to each other about it. It's systemic corruption. That's what we're talking about here. So now, in the memo, like I said, no, here's the thing. So, just like the memo, we know that there is deep, deep corruption when it comes to Donald Trump. And so we know that these governments would like to curry favor by putting money in his pockets. Now, I don't know which foreign government did this. Could it be the Ukrainians? I don't know. Could it be Saudi Arabia? That would be my guess, right? Because really, there's been no other country that Donald Trump has done more for than Saudi Arabia. There may be one or two, but I think Saudi Arabia is sort of my pick. I mean, look at what he's done for the Saudis, selling them arms to commit genocide in Yemen, sanctioning Iran, creating instability and allowing oil prices to go up, allowing Mohammed bin Salman to get away with dismembering a Washington Post journalist, Jamal Khashoggi. No, of course I put my money on the Saudis. But again, it could be the Ukrainians, could be the Russians, could be anyone. Trump doesn't care about the source as long as people put money in his pocket. So now let me give you a quote here from Representative Ro Khanna. So now he's an oversight committee member, and he said the president and his staff could have broken the law if they solicited the hotel reservations. So that's important, right? So that would actually make it a crime, breaking the emoluments clause. We don't know if he said, hey, stay at my hotels. So let's be fair on that, right? Nonetheless, it would still be a problem. If true, he says, at minimum, this suggests there is a culture of corruption that the administration has created. There's a sense that to curry favor, you have to engage in pay to play. That's exactly what the American people hate about Washington. And again, I think he makes a great point. There's a really good chance Trump didn't ask them to explicitly rent rooms. But it doesn't have to be explicit. I think through his words and actions, Trump has shown that what he cares about most is filling his pocketbook. I mean, look at the policies that he's passed. Tax cuts, deregulation, defunding the IRS to make it harder for them to go after him for doing tax fraud. I mean, putting William Barr and Stephen Mnuchin to protect him from ethics investigations, even after, as he directs foreign dignitaries as well as U.S. government employees to use his properties. I mean, look, Public Citizen compiled a list of federal agencies, including the National Security Council and the General Services Administration, that spent money at Trump properties in 2018. By that time, the Secret Service had already spent $64,000 at Trump properties and businesses since 2015. Now, look, to be fair on that, Donald Trump goes and stays at his properties. He's allowed to do that. The Secret Service has to go with him. So I kind of understand that a little bit. Still, that's really shady. And then, of course, you have the airport, the Scottish airport, Prestwick. So now he goes and uses this airport that's out of the way. Tells the U.S. Air Force to use this airport. So now they must go through this airport and refuel. It's a very struggling airport, which he happened to have a deal with. So the deal is, we get more traffic to Prestwick, and this was before the election, by the way. I get you more traffic to Prestwick, and you direct the people that are coming to your airport to Trump Turnberry. So we both make money. And so, of course, you have a lot of money coming in to that Trump resort as well as that airport. And it's all from, of course, paid for by U.S. taxpayers. That's corruption. It's literally Donald Trump's bread and butter. And now the Democrats are actually looking for it. And look, let's be honest, it's not going to be hard to find out proof. The real question is, what will we do when we find it? What will Pelosi do? So, I don't know, man. Look, if Nancy Pelosi tries to keep this narrow, focused on only the Ukraine stuff, that's going to be a huge, huge mistake. And if I were the Democrats, I'd throw everything at Trump. All of his corruptions, all of his financial dealings with other countries, everything. But as usual, I do believe that the Democrats plan to preemptively surrender at the altar of decorum. So don't be surprised if there's the impeachment over Ukraine fails because of Democratic incompetence. Okay. Moving on. Earlier this morning, President Trump once again attacked Swedish activist Greta Thunberg. So this was via tweet. Trump had quote tweeted a supporter with the username Opinion8D Kelly, who had shared a video clip of Thunberg's speech and offered this criticism. What an actress. She's getting the best education socialism can steal. I won't be held hostage by someone who just got a learner's permit. Sorry, kiddo, tell Al to try again. And that's in reference to Al Gore. Pretty sure that Greta doesn't want to be held hostage by idiots who don't understand how science and socialism actually work. But it appears that's where we're at, unfortunately. Now, Trump quoted that and he said, "Keep up the great work, Kelly." Yes, keep up the great work. Oil company profits depend on morons like her to ignore the science so they can make billions of dollars in profit. By the way, ExxonMobil admits climate change is real. The science is settled. Why attack a young teenager for simply telling you facts? The science. It's not like she's coming up with it. It's not like she's one of the researchers. In fact, her message is saying, listen to the science, listen to the science, listen to the science. Like, all I'm here is I'm just telling you the reality of what's going on and what my generation is facing based on actual scientific reports. And instead, they go after her with character assassination. So now this tweet got some pushback. This is from Professor Jennifer Taub of Vermont Law School. She said, quote, "Sir, cyberbullying a child who's helping better the world demonstrates your reprehensible weakness and desperation. As the First Lady tells us, be best. You undermine your wife's efforts and disgrace the office of the President of the United States every single day. Be best, guys. Be best." Is it? Let me tell you what. Is this being best? No, it's not. It's going after somebody who, again, is trying to do the right thing, and it's basically just telling you, hey, listen to the scientists. Listen to the scientists. Gerald Cutney says this: "It's disgraceful that you would retweet that slanders a young woman who is a champion of the people. You're just jealous that she understands the warnings of science and the IPCC reports better than you do." Robert People said, "Again, I will say that I'm a 21-year-old Army veteran who just retired last year. And with all that experience, I would go to war for Greta Thunberg before I would for Donald Trump. Commander in Chief, my ass." I like that. Jared Goff says, "We're enabling adults to put down courageous kids who are trying to make the world better." Great. Adam Strasberg said, "Calling amazing kids crisis actors is very on brand for the face of the Republican Party." And so here's the thing, right? All these responses, again, were defending Greta from these ridiculous attacks from people who don't want to hear the science. She says, "I don't want to be here. I don't want to be here. Listen to the scientists. Don't listen to me. Listen to the scientists." And the only thing people can do, since they don't believe in the science, is they attack her. They call her mentally ill. She's an actress. Something, something socialism. It's pretty gross. I mean, it's incredibly gross to think that this is the president of the United States and that he's retweeting this attack. And that him and a large group of so-called adults think this is perfectly fine behavior. When the children are acting more adult than the adults, that's when you know things are bad. It's incredibly frustrating. Okay. So now let's go to the verdict of Amber Guyger. Okay. So the jury has finally agreed to sentence Amber Guyger for the murder of Botham Jean. So I'm going to give you the details on this. Now, Amber Guyger, of course, 31-year-old police officer who killed John after breaking into his apartment and shooting him. So I know she claims that I thought it was my apartment. He was coming after me, and I was scared for my life, and so I shot him first and thought something else later, right? Okay. So now, according to CNN, Guyger, for being charged with and convicted of murder, by the way, not manslaughter, but murder, received 10 years in prison. Now, the maximum sentence to this, and there was a range between 5 and 99 years. Prosecutors asked for 28. She ended up getting 10 years. Kind of a joke. I'll be honest with you guys. That's what we do here. 10 years is a slap in the face. And I think the family agrees. So, look, I'm pretty upset. I'm not the only one. Bertram Jean, the father of Botham Jean, said this on Thursday. He said he wished that his son's killer had a stiffer sentence. Um, Not only that, but I mean, different other members of the family also agree that the sentence was way, way too light. So that again, that bothers me greatly. Now, if the situation were reversed and you had a man breaking into a woman's apartment and claiming, I didn't know it was mine, I didn't know it was my apartment, so I ended up shooting this person as she was sitting on the couch eating ice cream. Exact same situation, just reverse the roles. What do you think would have happened? Life in prison. Hell, maybe 2 life sentences. Look, there are black people right now serving prison time for nonviolent offenses. They're serving life in prison for nonviolent offenses. She murders someone and gets 10 years. That's ridiculous. Absolute ridiculousness. Now, so there's the other thing that kind of bothers me about this, and that's forgiveness, right? So that's the whole issue about the family like being so incredibly nice and forgiving. Now, look, I'm not gonna knock them, not at all, but I think it's ridiculous. Now, Botham's brother offered forgiveness to Guyger, and his father joined in. This is Brant Jing told CNN, or not CNN, but he actually said in court that he forgives her and hopes that she goes to Jesus. So you can tell kind of there's a very religious family there. Um, Bertram told CNN this quote, I felt the same way as Brant. I wish I could have extended the same courtesy. I don't want to see her rot in hell. I don't want to see her rot in prison. And of course, there was that famous embrace that you can see. Uh, I mean, look, this whole forgiveness thing, right? Again, I'm not going to knock the family and what they do. They're better people than I am. I'm just saying that if somebody busted into my brother's house, shot him while he was sitting at home, doing nothing wrong, watching TV, unwinding from work, eating ice cream or whatever, right? And then, again, shot him. And then when he was dying, really didn't do a whole lot of life saving procedures. I would not want to hug them. I would not want to embrace them. I would definitely not want to forgive them. Now, remember, also, what makes this even more ridiculous and even more I'm frustrated is that during the trial, she basically lied. Her defense was he was coming after me. When we know from the prosecution that the gunshot, the bullet, was at a downward trajectory, which means he was either sitting on the couch, which is consistent with the story, or cowering because someone had just broken into his house and threatened him with a gun. She lied. Her testimony was a sham. And they still said, I forgive you. I forgive you. I don't know, man. I don't know. She lied to their faces. They still forgave her. And I don't understand that. As if she's some sort of the victim, right? It's maddening. And again, we've seen this before. This is the first time that we've had an African American family that endured a gigantic injustice, and at the end of the day, they're always the bigger people. They suffered the most, and they always say, we forgive you." And maybe it's because it's a religious thing, right? But I can guarantee you never see the reverse. Again, if the situation were reversed, the family would be calling for this man's head, and they would most likely get it. And so, again, better people than I am. Now, one more thing that's frustrating about this is the judge. Now, the judge, look, I don't have anything against the judge person, right? But the treatment here, right? The judge hugged Guyger as well and gave her a Bible. Would a black man in the same situation get that same treatment? No. But since it's a white female police officer, now everyone's giving each other hugs and Bibles and saying well wishes. The whole thing just made me super uncomfortable. Why is it that African Americans, the black people, always end up having to be the better people? I mean, they're always on the hook to forgive when they shouldn't have to, because they're the victims in these situations. I don't know. But look, again, I agree with the family that Guyger should have gotten a much stiffer sentence. I mean, 28 years, I'd have been fine with that, right? 20, even 20 years, I would have been fine with that. But the jury has spoken. And so, I mean, what else can you do? At least there is some measure of justice. And again, I can tell you that the family is a much, they're much better people than I am. And they, you know, acted in a much better way than I ever would have. So I guess big credit to them. Okay. That's it. That's all I got for you guys today. Thank you for going around the nation with me. Please like and share the stream if you haven't already. Consider becoming a patron, patreon.com/TYDNation, or a channel member to support independent progressive media. Please like and share the clips as well. And we'll see you guys tomorrow. And remember, change begins with you. Good night, nation.